Oh, good goddamn! I don't know how to start this show. That's the trick when you start something new. Is you don't necessarily know how it's going to go. You haven't figured out the routine. You haven't figured out the quirks. The subtle in jokes haven't done their own thing yet, and it's fresh and painful and awkward. But here it is. Welcome to the Unwashed Asses, episode one, recorded Thursday, January 5th, 2017. A mere 2 years after what should have been its initial premiere. The Unwashed Asses was a thought I had a couple of years ago to do with another person in the wake of shows like Loveline and Dr. Ruth going by the wayside. I always liked listening to those shows and having people write in or call in with their issues and then having other people discuss it and give their perspective. It was fun and embarrassing at times, but overall it was an enjoyable experience. And so this person and I, what we did was we were looking at the sex thread in Reddit a lot and reading the posts put there, usually by teenagers or younger folks who had very similar problems, like, I met this girl, I don't know how to talk to them, or I'm a virgin at age 30, what should I do? And it was the thing of we wanted to be able to, one, build up an audience to answer questions like that, and build up not necessarily a bit of repertoire, but have a little bit of standing so we could have a regular influx of questions on the show. But for one reason or another, that never panned out. We recorded a beta episode. I wasn't too familiar with the technology at the time. There's definitely easier ways of doing it that I've since found out. But I'm now doing the show solo. And if you could see the show notes that I have in front of me, I have these things going back months and months and months. I've always wanted to do the show, but for one reason or another, it's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or no, I'm going to set the recording date at this, and then I'm going to stick to it, or it usually always came down to I was afraid, because doing a one-person show is hard. You have to keep a conversation going by yourself. You have to stay entertaining and engaging, and I'm neither of those things. Despite I've been doing the Zero Lives Let's Play series for a year, 2 years now. I'd have to look it up, but I've been doing it for a little while, and the format of that show has changed a bit, where it was much like this one is now, where I would have show notes because I wanted to do it as therapeutic gaming sessions where the belief was that people might not necessarily be interested in what I have to say, so let's give them something to watch while I'm saying it. And so I would plan out show topics, and usually the idea was that I wanted to do a little bit of therapy, not necessarily for the viewer themselves, but it was cathartic for me. Like, okay, what issues am I going through? What are some things that I've dealt with that I can then relay to other people and help them through it, through my own personal experience? And I found it was very hard to keep a train of thought going while actually playing a game, because my concentration was split between trying not to die and staying on point and being able to pull in all the topics that I wanted to and all the points and cover everything that I really wanted to talk about. So that didn't necessarily pan out. It devolved in a way to just a Let's Play video series where I would simply do just that. I would pop in a game, I'd play it, and that was it. I'd make commentary along the way, which I found was very difficult to do just because when I play games, I'm usually very quiet. I'm not a very outspoken person. I keep to myself, and it still is difficult to put together the words and actually take that filter off and just say whatever it is I'm thinking at the moment. And it's kind of why I don't like Let's Play videos to begin with, because I think streaming in general just isn't entertaining. I understand that a lot of people enjoy it and they're really into it, but it's not for me. I can't sit and watch another person play a game. It's the same reason that I never really got into watching sports. It's not entertaining to me. It's not enjoyable to watch. And so the same concept applies in Twitch streams, where it could be my favorite game of all time, but I'm not going to sit there and watch you play it, because it's something where I would much rather go out and play it myself. So I do the Zero Lives series with the understanding that somebody like me wouldn't watch it. So it's funny in the way that I'm doing these things that, well, I mean, I love podcasts, and that's what I wanted the Unwashed Asses to be, was podcasts where, for 30 minutes, an hour, you just listen and you have a good time, because that's what I do. It's what keeps me sane. I drive a lot in my job, and so I use the Pocket Cast app and have probably about 14, 15 podcasts that I listen to on the regular. And I always wanted to put out something like that. And I've discovered that learning the technology and actually how to record the shows and go through all that was what I found really enjoyable. Like learning this new stuff. I've always been infatuated with tech, and just getting into the audio video side of it and learning how to work the programs. It's honestly been my favorite part. So things like production, it might be something I want to look forward to, maybe helping out friends with their shows. But that's much further down the line. So with Zero Lives, it turned into a thing of just that. It wasn't necessarily for the entertainment of people watching my streams as much as it was I just enjoyed doing it. It's slowly ramped up, where before I would stream the shows to Twitch, export it over to YouTube, download it, and then I would edit the video from there, adding in my intros and outros, actually editing out bad sections and whatnot. But folks like Scott Johnson have really inspired me that just do it in one take, get it done with. If something screwy just like this, if something screwy happens, then you roll with it and you get it done. And so today, actually, I had my first kind of like idealized stream where I streamed to Twitch like I usually do, but I had everything on the tech end working, where I could play the intro as it was happening. I could play the outro. I put out the closing visual and got in the promotions I wanted to for Patreon, where that was, everything kind of came together finally. For once, it all came together and worked in one point. So it gave me a lot of hope, like, hey, I'm finally getting it. There's still a lot of things I would like to add to it, but for the most part, it's working out relatively well. And there's some other things that I'm doing, like the Friday Night Smite with Sapper Woody and Mezzafesto, that I want to incorporate those elements into it. And I'm hoping that the work I'm doing in these other shows allows me to put together the best quality show that I can for this. I understand it's going to start rough, but I want to continually improve not only the show but myself to make it better, because one of the biggest things that I was afraid of and still am kind of leery about with doing the Unwashed Asses, especially as a one mic show, is that I'm not a very good, or at least I don't think I'm a very good storyteller in person or verbally. I can write a hell of a story on paper, but when it comes time to actually telling it, I tend to fall apart. And I go back and I listen to myself and try to figure out ways to better myself, and so it's always a work in progress. But that's why I kept pushing this one off and off and off, and that's honestly the biggest reason where, or I shouldn't say where, but why the first few episodes I'm planning on doing them audio only. Because as I sit here looking around my living room, because I don't have a studio, the cats are One of them's sleeping, the other one's knocking food around the kitchen. Cat food, not my food. Um, Christmas decorations are still all up, and the place is a bit of a wreck because I just got home last night and I've been going through a real bout of depression, so I've got kind of clothes everywhere. There's a turned over bottle of chocolate milk. Um, it's not visually stimulating, and let's be honest, I'm not all that good to look at. So that's why I took the webcam off of the Zero Lives videos, and it's I don't like the sound of my voice. I don't like the way I look. Yet I do these things where people have to listen to me talk and have to watch me as I do other things. It's stupid. I don't. It's neither here nor there. I'm doing these things because I enjoy them. So that's what the Unwashed Asses is going to be. Is it's a foray into another territory that I'm not entirely familiar with the technical end of. I enjoy podcasts. I want to create one. That's what this is, but I don't necessarily know how to make that happen. I have the bits and pieces of the puzzle, and I'm going to try and squish them together, and we're going to see how that goes. So it might be a little while before you see the podcast itself pop up in things like Google Play or iTunes, because I don't know how things like RSS feeds work or how to submit to other sites. So it's going to be a work in progress, and it's going to be funny that when I finally do figure it out and you're hearing this first episode, that you're like, well, shit, dumbass, it works like this. Anybody can put together a podcast, and I don't know, it's baby steps. I don't have anybody else to rely on. Just doing it by myself. Cut me a break, man. But yeah, so welcome. First episode of the Unwashed Asses. It's gonna be, again, a one mic show where I talk about whatever it is the hell I want to talk about. So I have to keep trying to do interesting things and talk to interesting people, so I have shit to talk about. It's gonna be a weekly show. I want to follow up the Zero live stream with this because I find the biggest reason I kept putting off the Unwashed Asses was because I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't in the mood. And that's usually how I feel when I get into one of those bouts of depression, is that I just don't feel like doing anything. But conversely, the thing that makes me feel best is when I'm actually creating content. And so Zero Lives is easy enough to do that I don't have to sit and focus so much on being entertaining so much as it is just playing the game and letting things happen. And so that's what it was this morning, where I had set the time. I'm like, okay, we're going to do the show, we're going to record. And I did, and I feel a hell of a lot better. I feel motivated, and the stream and show overall turned out the best I've ever had. So being able to kind of warm myself up and get into the swing of things with Zero Lives is really what's going to help the Unwashed Asses, where the engine's been warmed up, I'm ready to go, and then I can do the harder activity of talking by myself to a webcam, or watching Audacity as it records the different waveforms. So that's going to be recording day. So if you're digging this show or the Unwashed Asses, Thursday mornings. Trying to shoot for Thursday 9 a.m. Central Time for Zero Lives, and then that one runs for about an hour, so hopefully by 10:30 I've got everything set up, ready to go for the Unwashed Asses. And then, by Thursday afternoon, Friday morning at the absolute latest, you have a couple of fresh batches of content on a weekly basis, and you're ready to go. So that's the plan. We'll see how well it pans out. Again, it's a learning experience here. I'm going to be spending probably the bulk of my afternoon here figuring out the rest of the podcast thing, editing this together, because much like how things started with Zero Lives, because I'm doing it in a different format with the Unwashed Asses, It's going to be recording instead of streaming first, editing things together behind the scenes for a finished product, and then slowly learning how to combine it all together in one go. So here it is. Okay, so again, part of figuring out how to do the show, stop recording, and then as we go into the new segment, start up a new section. But of course, I can't help but listen to myself and figure out how things are actually turning out with the files that I'm creating. And oh, I'm happy, I'm tickled, I'm enjoying this. But I really need to change Microsoft Groove as my default player because it's just such a big steaming pile piece of shit. And then to lead off from what I was talking about with the depression is I spent a lot of time by myself. So for Christmas, I mean, the typical Christmas shopping, what you're going to do is you go out by yourself anyways, and you go out and you buy gifts for everybody that you want to spend time with. And so since I was spending the day by myself anyways, I went out and I want to say it was like the 23rd, because let it be known, well, it's already known, but men have a propensity to buy gifts at the very last minute. I don't know, I've done it for years where Christmas Eve, that is my Christmas shopping day. I will go out and buy everything for everybody. I will fight the crowds. I will stand there like an asshole in a line for 45 minutes to buy the gifts. And that's what I did this year. I didn't do it on the 25th. I did it on the 23rd, but still, same thing where we actually went to a new mall this time because I live in a different part of the state, and so it was much shorter drive to go to this new mall across state lines instead of go to the one I usually do. And I gotta say, I like it a lot better. Not necessarily because it's new, because, well, one, I haven't been to a mall in ages. I don't get out. I'm a fucking hermit, and it sucks. So when I get out, I really get tickled by it. And as much as I hate people, the unwashed masses, aka the unwashed asses, I enjoy being out and about. It makes me feel not necessarily productive, but like a viable member of the community. Like, you're a real boy. So I go out to this new mall, and the parking lot is jam packed, as it's wont to be. I mean, we're 2 days before Christmas. Everybody's on a last minute panic, and so I finally find a parking spot way on the opposite side of where I want to be. I got a little bit of a walk, and I'm realizing I've got my charcoal gray coat and tan pants and my work winter boots on, and I realize I don't necessarily match all that well, and I'm feeling subconscious or self-conscious about myself. And like, you're not here to pick people up, you're here to buy presents. What the fuck do you care? It's like, well, I want to look good, and that's a whole nother tangent. Anyways, after the shopping was done, and I got some food, decided, yeah, I don't really have anything else to do for the day, and I had been wanting to see it for a while. Went out and bought some tickets to see Rogue One. Part of the new mall area that I'm visiting is that it's kind of a decently sized metropolitan area, so there's a lot of stuff to do around there, one of which is there's a decent theater. For whatever fucking reason, there is not a theater to be had within 40 minutes of where I live now. I don't understand it. If somebody would just drop a theater within, there's some decent sized towns next to me, and there's not a fucking theater. And it's frustrating. So I have to drive 45 minutes if I want to see a movie. Whereas before, in the town I lived in before, there was a there were 4 auditoriums inside of the one theater, and it was smaller, but shit, it was a 2-minute drive to the theater, and I could stay up to date on movies, the ones I wanted to see, and I would. There's at least one day out of the week, Thursdays, which is why I record everything I do, that I have time to myself, and I can go out and see things. I can go out and do things, and now, if I want to see something, I have to essentially, I'm going to effectively commit my day to this. So it was a thing where, okay, I've already spent my day doing the Christmas shopping. I've got the food. I'm going to go out and I'm going to see the movie. And so I decided on Rogue One. Star Wars has always been a huge favorite of mine, as I eye the door suspiciously despite it being locked and hearing things in the hallway. I got turned on. I used to really like Star Trek as a kid, and then got turned on to Star Wars and just was immediately hooked. So everything from the movies to the games, to the books, action figures, comics, everything. I mean, if it was Star Wars related, I was into it. And then Disney went and, just to rehash, bought out Lucasfilm and all of the Star Wars properties, and effectively erased everything I knew about Star Wars from the canon. Like, I was really deep into the expanded universe, and everything that happened, like when they killed Chewbacca, I was super fucking happy. Han and Leia's kids having to kill one another, and I can't really say spoilers for this anymore because fuck it, it doesn't matter. It didn't really happen. Disney's rewriting everything, making it brand new, which is good in a way because they can pull from that well of knowledge and experience as far as what were gigantic hits, and then recreate that either just straight up, we're going to make this canon now and we're going to turn it into a movie or a new property, or we can lift the elements that worked, combine it with elements from another similar thing, and create something new. And so Rogue One is that it's the first Star Wars movie we get where it's not focused on the core group of characters like Han, Leia, Luke, Vader. And we get a taste of what's going on in the universe, in that galaxy that isn't so far up the Skywalker's asses that it's refreshing. We get to see what's going on elsewhere. And then Rogue One, it promises to do that in a way, but then it drops the fucking ball. Now, if you are listening to this is going to be a very spoiler-intensive segment here, so you could skip forward probably about 15 minutes. I'm going to put some musical bumpers in here, and then you can listen after the fact. I won't be spoiling the shit out of this. So, Rogue One is the premise is the stealing of the first Death Star's plans, so the rebellion can blow it up. We are introduced to a ragtag band of heroes throughout the course of the movie whose ultimate goal is then to steal the plans. Now, the problem is, and I'm not going to go beat for beat with the movie itself, is that it did change some things, so it's not your typical Star Wars movie. Like, they got rid of the scrawling open, and they just went to a cold open where they had the typical black screen with the blue text long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then, boom, straight shot to a planet, no scrolling text, so that was jarring, much like when they got rid of the 20th Century Fox after Disney had acquired the rights. It was like, well, these are normal beats that you hear at the beginning of a Star Wars movie, and now we're missing 2 of those beats, and it snapped me. It made me think, what the hell's going on? And so, the beginning of the movie, we get a lot of planet hopping, where they're going from planet to planet. They're establishing the characters, the places, and what's going on, but it's all happening so quickly. And I mean, I'll give them credit. It's gorgeous looking. The worlds are fantastic. It's nice that we're not starting on a fucking desert planet again and meeting some kid in rags who's going to become a Jedi. And I'm going to go on a side jaunt here. the fact that this doesn't revolve around the Jedi per se. I mean, it's very heavy-handed with Jedi, but the only lightsaber that we see is Darth Vader's is just, it's a breath of fresh air. When I was younger, I really liked the Jedi and everything that happened with them, but it fucking tell us something else, man. Like, I love Moose Tracks ice cream, but I can't sit and eat it all day before I get, or else I'll get sick on it. So the planet hopping itself was jarring. It didn't really allow me to get immersed in what was going on, because as soon as I was starting to really take it in, boom, we're off to another planet. And so the movie was hopping around a whole lot in the beginning, and we, meet the the main hero, Jin, and her family. So we see what happens to her as a little girl, and then I fell asleep. I shit you not. 2:30 in the afternoon, movie starts, I had just eaten, I just done all my shopping, I got a good night's sleep beforehand. There's no reason at all I should just be nodding off in a crowded theater. I've got this big fucking fat ass sitting next to me, munching on a bag of popcorn, talking to himself throughout the movie. I got a couple texting to the left of me, and I zonk out. I'm totally out, and there's no reason for it. So I don't know if that speaks to, like, am I developing some sort of narcolepsy, or is the movie just not that engaging? So I'm asleep. The next thing I know, I wake up and Donnie Yen is just beating all kinds of ass as his blind character. I don't even remember the name. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened, because there's 3 or 4 main characters that have been introduced now, and I don't know what's going on. So that's kind of how the rest of the movie progressed, where we're introduced to main characters, but these aren't main characters that are going to last beyond the movie, because, spoilers, everybody dies at the end. So it felt very rushed. They weren't fully fleshed out. Not necessarily that they had to be, but I didn't feel anything for them. And it was moving along, not necessarily at a steady clip, but very frantically. It didn't feel very well planned out. So we get moving along, and it's just like, well, we have to do this now. Well, because we did this, we now have to do this. It just felt like they were building the track as the train was rolling along, and it didn't flow well. And by the end of the movie, it just, I don't know, it felt like a mess. They didn't really have that clear objective, that goal of, we need to get the Death Star plans, until 2/3 into the movie. And then that last third is where it really came together. Again, the characters, they weren't that interesting. I didn't really like them. The only reason I liked, like, Donnie Yen's character and the robot were because of the actors playing them. I love Donnie Yen and all of his foreign films, like Ip Man, and he's essentially like this new age Jackie Chan, and I love it. And then we have the robot KS something fucker. The only reason I like him is because it's played by Alan Tudyk. And that's not saying a whole lot. I mean, I know movies promote themselves because of the actors behind them, but the Rogue One wasn't promoting these characters because of the actors behind them. A lot of the actors were relatively unknown, newer actors, and they didn't resonate with me. They didn't hit anything. So the highlights were just because I already liked the guys playing the characters, not necessarily because I liked the characters themselves. Although I will say that Alan Tudyk's robot providing levity and comic relief through that dry humor was definitely the highlight of the movie. Probably my favorite, aside from Darth Vader murdering the absolute shit out of Rebel scum as, spoilers, Leia's ship breaks away. And that's the other aggravating bit about Rogue One, is what they did with just the heavy-handedness of the fan service. We get the shot of they're on Yavin 4 because Rogue One is nestled right up the asshole of Episode 4, where we get a shot of C-3PO and R2-D2, and I fucking hate those droids so goddamn much. I'm so sick of seeing them. And it was literally a thing where the camera panned to the right, there they are, 3PO makes a stupid fucking joke, and then next scene. It was not necessary at all. We get a terrible CGI Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin, and wasn't necessary. I mean, yes, you want Tarkin in the movie because of how involved he is with the Death Star and its construction and everything going on with that, but we're too afraid to recast these roles. I mean, Peter Cushing nailed it, but he's been dead now. And I understand they got permission from the Cushing estate to do the CGI, but much like a lot of the movie itself, it's jarring. And so when we see a CGI character having to interact with other real characters, it's like, fuck. Tarkin was good, but he was only in one movie. It's okay. Find another British actor with super high cheekbones, recast it, and just let him do it. Let him do his interpretation. It's fine. You know, I'll just have one of the other commandants or whoever the fuck say, oh, Grand Moff Tarkin. And then, boom, we've established who the character is. We understand he's been recast because we just know the actor's dead. We can't get him. Instead, they're like, oh, we're going to ham-fist this guy in. And it makes me really afraid for the future of movies where we get, you know, one interpretation of a character by a certain actor. And I'm wondering if we just keep recasting that character actor and using them as CG in future interpretations of the film. Like, are we going to get 12 more Batman films with Heath Ledger playing the Joker posthumous? I mean, I can't fucking pronounce it, even though he's dead. So it takes away that novelty and the magic of it, and I think it's bullshit, to be frank. Adding on, you know, a little insult to injury, we had, and this must have happened during the scene I was asleep, where we had Ponda Baba and Dr. Xavian, I don't know how to pronounce it, the ugly guy and ass face from Episode 4 who gets their arm cut off by Obi-Wan after they come after Luke. Again, just super unnecessary to have them in there. And the final bit is the movie ends literally as Episode 4's beginning. They have the Tantive 4 Leia ship nestled up into not a Celestian, Akbar's people. What do you mean, Akbar's people? They have it nestled up into one of their ships, and it literally takes off just as Vader's murdering the shit out of all the rebels. He sees her ship leave. So the opening shot of Episode 4, New Hope, is Vader's Star Destroyer shooting on Leia's ship because he literally just saw it peel out of there. He's got the plate numbers. He knows exactly what happened there. And so it makes Leia's lines at the beginning of Episode 4 feel out of place or a little flat. She's like, well, I'm on a diplomatic mission. He's like, bitch, I just saw you take off from this battle. I know you have these plans. And that brings me back to kind of the final insult where we have a CGI Carrie Fisher as young Leia. It's okay. Recast it or shoot it differently, like where you just show her from the back. There's no need to use CGI as much. The one thing you guys should have learned from the prequels is lay off the CGI, go for more practical effects. But I think it's because they're so afraid to step away from the Skywalkers and things that are familiar. Like, Star Wars can't fucking fail. I don't think you can make a bad Star Wars movie. If you do, great. You made something terrible out of a great property, and you can argue the prequels are terrible, but fuck you. There's parts that you enjoy out of it. There's always something that you can enjoy, so they're not, just downright awful. So it's frustrating where we get a chance to do a different genre where, Look at Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. That was a great spy thriller inside of a comic book movie. And this was a chance to be a great espionage movie set in the Star Wars universe. But instead, they had to latch it onto the coattails of another Star Wars film. And so it fell apart in that aspect. It was not good at all. And just step away. Just do something different. Don't give me a movie where there isn't a lightsaber. Give me a movie where there isn't a reference of Skywalker or Vader. Give me a movie about a Western-style bounty hunter movie, or give me a straight-up spy thriller, or a detective story. There are so many different things you can do within Star Wars. It doesn't have to be all straightforward sci-fi. You have this incredibly lush, detailed universe. Use it. So overall, I mean, it's kind of hard to give it a fair ranking because I fell asleep. It's one I'm going to have to watch again to give it really a fair shake. But visually, it's great. The music's fantastic. The acting's pretty spot on. The biggest thing I had, the biggest issue with it I had was the story, though. So, as ranking, it kind of falls down into the middle where I'd put, Empire, then Jedi, then probably Force Awakens, and then Rogue One. I'm in the vast minority where I think A New Hope was terrible. I did not care for it at all. I'm not going to go into why, but essentially then I would place them as Revenge, New Hope, Attack of the Clones, and then Phantom Menace. So I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to spend the movie on it. Spend the money on it to see it in the theaters again, mostly because of how far I have to drive now and the cost of the tickets, because it's a nicer theater and you have to pay a bit more. So I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to wait for the DVD or digital release because I don't buy DVDs any longer. And we'll see then. It might be a rental. I might just buy it again because it's Star Wars. I'm going to buy it, and fuck me for being a sheep. But it had highlights, but mostly fell flat. So I'd be interested to hear what you think. Anybody wants to write in the show, the unwashedasses@gmail.com. Put Star Wars in the subject line, and I'll read those on the next show. Alright, so the plan with Unwashed Asses is to make it a 3-segment show. We have our intro, we have our middle segment, and we have our last segment, and then punctuate it with the audio interludes. So make it a little bit easier for the folks that, well, fuck you, Christian, I don't care what you think about Rogue One, I'm going to skip to the next one. And I could say, well, fuck you, I'm going to talk about video games now. That, and I don't necessarily have to worry about segues, because segues are hard. So, 2016, as far as games were concerned, there were a lot of good ones, and a lot that I didn't play. I'm finding that my time for games, despite doing a weekly gaming show, and then subsequent little games every now and then, like the games with gold, I try and play through all of those and then post videos up. I like that series a lot, in that a lot of the games I haven't played, and so it's a way to get an honest reaction about a game. I go through the first 45 minutes to an hour of it, which is usually a good chunk of the tutorial, but it gives folks the idea is to give people a good impression as far as what to expect with it. And having the luxury of being a professional reviewer of games several years back, is I can I'm experienced in giving that type of insight, and so it's fun to do. I think it's helpful, and it gives me an excuse to play these games that I had otherwise been ignoring for a large part of the games with gold. So it breaks up the monotony too, and then I get a treat. I get treated to some real gems, the stuff that I wouldn't have given the time to previously, which is evidenced by not playing it. I play it and I'm like, oh, holy shit, this is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. Like, take this month's initial offerings with The Cave and Death Trap, Van Helsing story. For example, I know that everybody loves Double Fine Productions and the stuff they put out, but games like Brutal Legend, and then we had the Telltale, not Telltale, the Monkey Island was last month. I wasn't really impressed. Like, I could see why people would like it, but it didn't do anything for me. And so we had The Cave come out this month, and I have already beaten it once. Like, within a couple days, I went through and beat it once, and I'm already on my second playthrough. We also had the Death Trap, which is essentially Diablo meets tower defense, and it looks like garbage from previews, but playing it, I really enjoyed it. If you watch that video, the first 10 or so minutes, I'm just ripping on this game because it doesn't look like it's going to be great. It's overly complicated, yada yada yada. By the end of it, I'm in love, and that's the true test, is to see if the games actually stay installed after I record that episode. And those are two that are definitely staying on. So beyond like the games with gold, because I have that limited budget, there's only so many games that I can buy throughout the year. And the games that I do buy, I want to make sure they have really high replay value. So I'm just going to go through, what I've got. I've got the Xbox open right now. There haven't been too many games that I bought on PC that were released in this past year. The one I did buy, though, or actually two I did buy. Hyper Light Drifter was really good. I would like to go back and finish that one. And that Dragon Cancer. But I'm saving that Dragon Cancer for a stream because it's going to be an emotional roller coaster. Like, I've not been able to read anything about that game or play any of the clips without crying like a little bitch. So I'm super jazzed to stream that one. So beyond that, the only games I can really think of that came out this year, and I'm looking at the Xbox here, that I spent a lot of time with would be like Ark and Overwatch and Titanfall 2. So we'll just kind of break them down a little bit. Now, Ark itself, I had picked up after hearing from my significant other about how good it was. She had been raving about it. She had been a PC player now. Myself, I don't have a PC that's capable of running a game like that. So when it came to the Xbox, I went ahead and grabbed it while it was on a sale. Ark is brutally hard. You need other people to survive and play with. And so that began an uprising or a resurgence of the Horror of Cocytus Guild. We put together a Slack, invited a shitload of people, essentially everybody that I knew, and then some, I invited into it. And so we started playing on an Ark server, and there was a handful of us working together, and it was fun. We got to build these clothes, and we didn't have a dinosaur for like the first 2 months. And eventually it built up and up and up, and I let somebody else, Malicious 45, take over the tribe in there, and we ended up merging with another tribe and became essentially the alpha for it. And we had all these crazy dinosaurs and this gigantic base that, because Ark is so terribly optimized, would fucking stutter and wouldn't load properly when you're in it. And it was fun, but the technical issues as well as the mandatory upkeep is the biggest deterrent to Ark. It's a hyper-realistic Minecraft in the sense that you can build, but the tools they give you to build with aren't good. After you place an object, you can't necessarily reposition it. The game takes forever to load initially, if it does load, and then if it doesn't, you gotta try and load it again. It runs like absolute dog shit on the Xbox, where there's a lot of rubber banding, there's latency issues. It Things pop in as far as textures are concerned. It's not good overall. So I dropped it. It's still installed. I don't know why, but that was, I don't know, maybe the first large foray into this year that I had with a new title. Overwatch was one that I had been keeping my eye on for a very, very long time with the previous partner that I had planned on wash asses with. We were very much looking forward to Overwatch because we were huge Blizzard fans. We played a lot of World of Warcraft together, and the fact that Blizzard was doing something, kind of loosely comic book related, where it's based around superheroes and it's a new genre, and the first few teasers that they put out were incredible. So when Overwatch finally came out and it was just this gigantic hit, I fell in love with it. I really, really enjoyed it, but from the characters to the levels to the gameplay types to the fact that it focuses on actual team effort, and the characters are so well fleshed out, and there's a great variety of the different play styles. It's super fun to play, but it's one of those games where I feel it would be best if you had a core group of people to play it with. The problem with the guild was that we were a multi-game, multi-platform guild, and so we would have people playing Overwatch, but we'd have like PC players, we'd have Xbox players, or we had people that didn't have it at all, and just weren't going to buy it. And so Overwatch is painful in a way to play as a single player. You're getting matched up with randoms, where we now have the arcade mode where everybody can play as like the same character if they want. Essentially, it was the original version of Quick Play before it got refined to one character only, and with the other rule tweaks. It's frustrating to go against other matched people or folks that actually have the time to sit and invest into the game. That I lose a lot, and it's aggravating. I can't play the characters that I like necessarily. Like, I enjoy support and healing classes, but it's hard to justify playing a Mercy when the rest of your team is going to ignore you and not going to provide any defense. So I'm getting shot in the face over and over again. I can't do anything to stop that, and I can't support my team because they're not staying on the objective and they keep running away. Now, that being said, over the past couple holiday events where we had Halloween with Junkenstein's Revenge, had introduced like a horde mode. I was able to play another support character, Ana, in that otherwise I would have ignored the character. So it really turned me on to that, and the fact that it was straightforward cooperative, we're killing AI, it was a lot of fun. The Christmas event introduced a random 6v6 battle where each time you die, you get a new random character, and so you don't run against that same team comp where somebody's just going to push the payload and then straight up win. It's a lot of rotation, and it's teaching me to appreciate the other characters and how to play them. So there's a lot of good in it, and I'm playing it more than I used to in the past. The big, not necessarily surprise, like Titanfall 2 was the other big title that I bought and played this year. I got it on a really good sale, and there were a couple titles that I wanted to get that I didn't end up getting. Like, we had Battlefield 1, I played the demo, that I enjoyed it, and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I haven't played a Call of Duty in years, but the gameplay trailer of the space battle really intrigued me. I'm like, I'm going to pick this one up. And then Titanfall 2 came out, and I'm like, fuck that noise, I'm going right back to Titanfall. Now, Titanfall had a big falling out with its player base because they had paid maps which then went free. There wasn't, I mean, there was support, but not a whole lot for the first one. And the first one I had played obsessively. Like, I ended up hitting Prestige 5 with that one and got stuck because of that stupid Goose Challenge. The Goose Challenge was, well, let me back up a step further. To progress or to prestige in the game, essentially you hit your level cap and then you have the option to start all over again, and there you could do it 10 times. But instead of Call of Duty, where you would just hit the level cap and then choose to start all over again, you had to complete certain challenges within Titanfall. And at rank 5, one of those challenges was to kill ejecting pilots. So you would, one, not only have to destroy their Titan, but two, as they were ejecting, assuming they did eject and weren't destroyed with the Titan, you would have to kill them in mid-air with your Titan. And that was stupidly hard to do. Now, supposedly they've since modified that challenge, so it's either, I don't know how they changed it, but anyhow, that's where I got stuck. But I played a lot of Titanfall. So Titanfall 2 was announced. I got super excited about it. I was still leery because they initially had 3 different Titan types in the first game, and you had a lot of customization as far as the weapons and whatnot. Whereas the second game, they had 6 different types of Titans, and the customization wasn't near as great. You couldn't change out the weapons. They had their unique sub-weapon types or abilities, so instead of having kind of like a jack-of-all-trades Titan, you had to kind of pick a role. And I wasn't necessarily keen on that, but now that I've played it, I enjoy it. The biggest addition they had, though, was the addition of... I'm stupid. They added in a single-player component. And single-player story was non-existent in the first one. They said they had it, but they didn't. It was all multiplayer. They would have little cutscenes play out while you're in the game. That would be a little square in the HUD where people would talk to you, and depending on if you won or lost, it would affect the story. But it wasn't something you could continuously play through or stick on one side. It was frustrating. It wasn't good at all. So the second game, they literally introduced a full-on single-player campaign. And holy hot damn was it good. I played through it all in one day. The character development, the bond that you form with your Titan in there was top-notch. They introduced some really, really good game mechanics and story elements. Or, not to give too much away, but there's one part of the game where you're effectively controlling time, but you're doing it in a different way than you would in other games, where you're going through this facility in the future and everything's deteriorated, nobody's been there for ages, and you have a device that allows you to travel to the past, back when everything was active. And so to clear objectives and get around people or animals, you have to switch back and forth between the two time phases. And just the way it was implemented was easily the highlight of my gaming year of 2016. Add on to that a ridiculously fun multiplayer aspect, all of the same upgrades, and essentially the same system that you had from the first game. It's top notch. I'm thoroughly pleased with it, and it's one I keep going back to over and over again, much like Overwatch. Now, the game itself, though, that saw a lot of attention from me this year was Destiny. Destiny, we had the April update roll around. We had the Rise of Iron come out, which was their last big expansion for the game. We had the Festival of the Lost and the Dawning events that happen around Halloween and Christmas. And so we saw an increase in the light level, a new raid introduced, and new PvP modes, and just a whole lot of new content. And I mean, Destiny it's just my default game of choice since I've given up WoW. I don't have to pay the monthly fee. It has a lot of the same mechanics. I was actually able to find a group of people to play with on a semi-regular basis, so I've gotten into the raiding. And overall, just I'm thoroughly enjoying my time with it. But now we're getting back into that lull where Destiny 2 is rumored to be coming out this year. We don't know when. We don't know how much more content we're going to see, or we just finished up The Dawning at the end of 2016, and there might be a Valentine's Day event coming in, but there's nothing to really work for, as far as there's not going to be any new content, no new instances, no new raids, no new gear, nothing to really work up. And right now current cap is 400. I'm sitting at 393 with my Titan, and it's fun to go back to, but I'm not getting anything new out of it. And so having the games with Gold Series is enjoyable in that aspect, that now I get new games to play. So those are the big ones. I did pick up a couple other games that were enjoyable, others not so much. Like Resident Evil 6 is virtually unplayable. I was really hoping to have a good split screen experience with that, but the controls are just so clunky. You can't play the game. I picked up Unravel that was on sale recently for $5. It came out this year. It's adorable. I really like the design of it. The music is enchanting, but fuck, the puzzles ramp up in difficulty, and it's, for such a cute game, I don't think I've sworn as much as I have when playing that. Beyond that, there's really not much that I've played. Smite would probably be the only other one that I played a lot of, and that's just because of Friday Night Smite, like I mentioned earlier with Mezzy and Sapper Woody. So if you want to watch us play that, we stream every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time till about midnight. We do a lot of the Joust play type. We have a pretty good core team. There's a lot of interaction with his chat, and yeah, it's a good time all around. I stream it as well, and then I put an archive up on my YouTube page. So it's really gonna wrap it up as far as what I had with the 2016 gaming. Again, things are a work in progress with the Unwashed Asses. I kind of laid out the plans as far as what I want to do with it, and things will change as I move along, find new ways of doing it, or think of just changing or innovating. So thank you very much for listening, giving this first episode a go. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's just at 0and09, ZEROAND09. Really anything. If you want to find out what I'm up to, it's just search for that name, and I'm going to be tied to it. Beyond that, I do have a new schedule in place where we have the Zero lives streaming 9 a.m. Central Time on Thursdays. Unwashed Asses is going to follow that up. We have a new comic series, Emily Says Boo, that gets a new strip every Monday. But if you want to support this show or any of the other works that I do, head over to patreon.com/0and09. Again, that's ZEROAND09. I've got a bunch of different tiers of rewards, as far as like getting your name on the site, getting a digital sketch every month, or even joining me on the stream itself. Whatever you want to contribute, every little bit helps. I appreciate it. It helps me do the shows and then make them better. So again, head over there. Definitely support. But otherwise, yeah, if you want to write the show with questions, looking for advice, or just telling a story, I'd be more than happy to read those as well. Again, the unwashedasses@gmail.com. The unwashedasses@gmail.com. Really, send in whatever, and I'll probably read it. But it's been fun, and we'll see you next Thursday. There's been a poisoning of my memories of you. Oh, my lover, you are beautiful, but that beauty comes at such a price, and I know that you'll soon disappear. Like the dark and